Hey guys, today we're going to learn how to shorten links when using Apache and PHP. But first, you need to know about this file called htaccess. Man, I love playing with this file, mostly because it gives me so much power over my server that I feel like Lex Luthor. Not that I'd ever do anything evil to my visitors, of course. It's just that the rules in this file are absolute. You can create redirects, block access to certain files, or even the whole server, enforce HTTPS, and so much more. But most importantly, in this video, we'll use it to shorten links. So let's start with the rewrite engine by turning it on. Then I'll add a comment so you can follow what I'm doing. Next, we'll create a rule using the rewrite rule command. For example, home/$. The question mark after the slash means the link can optionally have a slash at the end, and it will still match. This rule will then point us to the real link, index.php, which is what we're actually hiding. The QSAL part means QSA, query string append, keeps any query strings from the original URL and passes them to the new one. And L last tells Apache to stop processing other rules once this one matches. And now this is how the rule looks. Let's test it. Everything looks right in my eyes, but somehow I can't find what's wrong. Checking spellings, no. Maybe the comment was being read as part of the rule, nope. Still no. I must be hungry. Let's ask ChatGPT what I'm missing. Well, let's unpack. Point 2, Chatty says, if your site's .htaccess file is inside the root folder / then the request/test/home is passed to the rule as test/home. So your rule needs to account for the test/part. Well, Chatty, if I were only a beginner, haha, it thinks tests is not my virtual host, but just another directory. I tell it, but tests is localhost. It says, oh, then we keep going in circles. I say, no, tests is a virtual host. Finally, it understands and gives me code for it. Same code as mine, just with cooler looking comments. I try its rules, they work. I delete them and put back mine, it breaks. I put them back again, they work. I put both back and start searching for the error, and then I see it. I put a space between QSA and L. I delete the space, and that's it. It works. Why did I go through all this trouble? Well, I just want to put this in your mind. In .htaccess, spaces matter. Anyway, now that we have that one rule, you can see that it works. If I go to tests home, you'll see it takes me straight to index.php. Beautiful. But that only works for tests home. What if we wanted to go to projects or users? Well, it won't work yet because this specific rule is only for home pointing to index.php. That's why I'm just going to duplicate this rule and make a few changes so we can have shortened links for projects and users as well. Everything's working now. Watch as I change the links in the address bar. It redirects perfectly to our shortened versions. But here's something to note. Even though we've masked the original raw links with these clean shortcuts, the raw links themselves still work if someone enters them directly. Next, let's see how to use parameters in our shortened links. I'll start by echoing the parameters on the page using the $get global variable, which grabs data from the URL. You might see an error at first. That's just because there's no value in $get yet. We can fix it by checking if a value exists or returning nothing if it doesn't. Now it works. When I add a parameter in the address bar, $get captures it perfectly. But what if we want the value to pass through without showing the key in the URL? No problem. We can add that directly into our htaccess rules. Let's do it. Now there are a lot of rules you can apply to your htaccess, like the following file that I had in my other project when I first learned about it. For example, you can see block requests with common proxy headers. You can see block requests without HTTPS. You can see redirect all traffic to index.php unless the file or directory being requested actually exists. Serve static assets directly without routing them through index.php, which helps improve performance if you have a single entry point. On top of that, you can also handle URL parameters inside your rewrite rules. That way, you can interpret what each part of the URL string after / actually represents. So let's do that now. This string here that you see inside brackets AZ09 plus is to sanitize the input. This famous regex just tells .htaccess that the expected data should be characters, both uppercase and lowercase, numbers, and dashes. We can also tell it to allow numbers only if we wanted to, but that would just take away all the fun in your learning experience. Anyway, we keep going as before with index.php. Now we're going to add the question mark to our raw link and add the key, just like how we do when adding it manually in the address bar. But then after the equals sign, instead of the value, we put $1, which is the replacement for the captured value from the bracket regex we had earlier. Now let's try it. Anyway, I ran into an error, but don't worry, the error was not in the syntax. What I was trying here was just to get the parameter by typing the value after slash, but because I already had a rule that said stop once rule matches, the rule would stop without retrieving the parameter. So keep that in mind. You need to know which rule should run first and make sure it doesn't conflict with other rules. I'm just going to jump here to a nicer looking file. Fast forward, you can also add as many parameters as you want, just like this. Each link would require its own rule. If you want from 0 to 1 to 2 to 5 parameters, it means you would also need 6 rules just for that one type of link. That's why you would end up making something that looks like this in the long run. The larger the system, the more complex the rules get. Yeah, it's not all nice. But what if I told you that you can achieve all of that in just over 5 lines of rules? Well, it doesn't fully solve your routing problem, but it takes the roots and handles them differently. And that's how frameworks like Laravel do it, I think. If you want a video on that, let me know. I already practiced that in my last project. But yes, htaccess is so freaking cool. Like and subscribe.